Welcome to another deep dive. This time it's into the poetry of Rumi.
Ah, Rumi.
Yeah, we're using the Essential Rumi, translated by Coleman Barks,
Okay.
to explore kind of his major themes like love, emptiness, and, the journey towards the divine.
Right.
And I think one of the things that really struck me as I was reading through these poems is how he uses like these playful, these kind of like surprising metaphors
Yeah.
to explore these really deep spiritual concepts.
He does, and
Oh, yeah.
that's what makes his work so compelling, I think, for so many people.
Yeah.
Even today, centuries later, his words still resonate because he takes these complex ideas and
Yeah.
makes them relatable through vivid imagery and storytelling.
Yeah.
I mean, like when he talks about the soul as like a thirsty fish searching for the ocean.
Yeah, that one really stuck with me too. And it is so simple,
Right.
but it's so powerful.
It is.
Have you ever felt like that thirsty fish searching for something more? What does your soul thirst for?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's a question we should all be asking ourselves. What are we all ultimately searching for?
Yeah.
And I think, Rumi suggests that what we're really seeking is union with the divine,
Yeah.
that source of love and wholeness that we all come from.
Right. And that brings us to this idea of emptiness, which is another big theme in his work.
Right.
And when I first encountered that, I was kind of like, emptiness? Like, that sounds,
Bleak.
yeah, a little bleak. But as I read more, I realized that he wasn't talking about emptiness in the way that I was initially thinking of it.
No, he's not talking about a void or a lack of something. He's talking about emptiness as a state of receptivity,
Oh,
a willingness to let go of our preconceived notions,
okay.
our desires, our ego, in order to make space for something greater to enter.
So it's not about being empty, it's about being open.
Exactly. Think of it like a cup. If a cup is already full,
Right.
you can't pour anything else into it. But if it's empty, it's ready to receive.
Oh.
And for Rumi, I think that's what spiritual growth is all about. It's about
Okay.
emptying ourselves of all that is false and limiting so that we can be filled with the divine.
That makes so much sense. And there's this line in one of the poems that says, "This world which is made of our love for emptiness."
Hmm.
It's like he's saying that our attachment to the material world,
Right.
our striving for more, is actually what's keeping us from that true spiritual richness.
Yeah, it's a powerful insight. And I think it challenges us to really rethink our priorities,
Yeah.
to consider what we're truly valuing in our lives.
Yeah.
Are we so focused on filling our lives with things, experiences, achievements that we've forgotten about cultivating that inner space of emptiness, that receptivity to something greater?
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we embrace this emptiness, this receptivity in a practical way?
Well, Rumi emphasizes the importance of practices like meditation,
Mm.
silent self-reflection.
Okay.
These practices help us to quiet the mental chatter,
Yeah.
to step back from the constant stream of thoughts and desires,
Right.
and to connect with that still, quiet space within.
So it's about creating space both literally and figuratively. Like
Exactly.
making time for silence, for reflection, for just being. Yes.
Rather than constantly doing.
Exactly. And, it's not always easy.
No.
Our minds are so accustomed to being busy, to constantly seeking stimulation and distraction.
Yeah.
But the more we can cultivate this inner stillness, the more receptive we become to the whispers of our hearts, to the guidance of our intuition, and to the presence of the divine.
And speaking of guidance, Rumi also talks a lot about the importance of having a teacher or a guide on the spiritual path.
He believed that having a mentor, someone who has already traversed the path,
Right.
can be invaluable
Right.
in navigating the complexities of spiritual growth.
It's like having a map and a compass when you're venturing into uncharted territory.
Yes. A teacher can help you to avoid pitfalls, to stay on course, and to deepen your understanding of the teaching.
All right.
And they can also provide support and encouragement when the going gets tough.
Which it inevitably does, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
There are challenges, there are setbacks, there are moments of doubt and despair.
Right.
But that's where a teacher can be so helpful. They can remind you of your true nature.
Help you to see the bigger picture
Okay.
and encourage you to keep going even when you feel like giving up.
And Rumi himself had a very important teacher.
He did Shams of Tabriz,
Right.
and their relationship was so central to his work.
Yeah.
Shams was this wandering dervish who arrived in Konya, where Rumi was living,
Right.
and completely upended his life.
Yeah.
Their connection was so intense and transformative.
Yeah.
And it said that Rumi wrote many of his most famous poems inspired by his love for Shams.
So we've talked about emptiness.
Oh,
We've talked about the need for a teacher, which are both pretty profound concepts on their own.
right.
But then there's this idea of love,
Yes.
which is like arguably the biggest theme in Rumi's work.
Love is really the cornerstone of his philosophy. He sees John love as his driving force of the universe, the
Yeah.
energy that connects everything and everyone.
And it's not just romantic love that he's talking about. It's
Yeah.
like a much bigger, more expensive kind of love.
Exactly. Rumi's concept of love encompasses all forms of love.
Yeah.
Love for humanity, love for nature, love for the divine.
Yeah.
He believed that through cultivating love, we transcend our limited selves and experience a sense of unity with all that is.
And he talks about this in some pretty wild ways.
He
I
does.
mean, in one poem, he compares the process of falling in love to a blacksmith hammering copper.
That's one of my favorites.
Why do you think he chose that image? What does that image evoke for you?
It's such a vivid image. It conveys a sense of intensity and transformation.
Yeah,
Like love isn't just this fluffy, sentimental feeling.
right.
It's a force that can reshape us, purify us, even break us open.
It's a bit more dramatic than your typical love poem,
It is.
but that's what makes Rumi so compelling. He challenges our conventional notions of love,
He does.
pushing us to experience it on a deeper, more soul-stirring level.
Yeah. And he doesn't shy away from the challenges that come with loving deeply. He acknowledges the pain of separation,
Yeah.
the heartbreak of loss,
Yeah.
the vulnerability of opening our hearts.
There's this line in one of his poems, gamble everything for love if you're a true human being. What does that mean to you? What are you willing to gamble for love?
Wow, that's a powerful challenge.
It is.
It's a call to be courageous in our pursuit of love,
Yeah.
to be willing to risk everything, to surrender fully to that which makes our hearts sing.
To let go of fear.
Yes.
To step outside of our comfort zones.
Yes.
To embrace the unknown, even if it means getting hurt.
Exactly, because for Rumi, love is not just a feeling,
Yeah.
it's a way of being in the world.
Right.
It's an orientation of the heart that permeates everything we do.
And he suggests that love can lead us to a higher truth. He writes, love is the astrolabe that sights into the mysteries of God. So what do you make of that? How can love be an astrolabe?
Well, an astrolabe is this ancient instrument
Right.
that was used to navigate by the stars. So I think what Rumi is suggesting is that love can be our compass, our guide on the spiritual path.
Right.
It can help us to navigate the complexities of life, to see beyond the surface of things,
Okay.
and to connect with a deeper truth.
So it's like love gives us a new way of seeing the world.
Yes.
A new perspective that allows us to glimpse the divine in everything.
Exactly. And it's not always an easy path.
Right.
Just as navigating by the stars can be challenging.
Right.
So too can the path of love be full of twists and turns, storms and calm seas.
Okay.
But Rumi assures us that the journey is worth it.
Because it's ultimately a journey back to ourselves,
Yes.
back to that source of love and wholeness that we all come from.
Beautifully put. And the idea of the return is another key theme that we see woven throughout Rumi's work.
And another thing that I really love about Rumi is how he uses stories, parables,
Yeah.
to illustrate these deep spiritual concepts.
He does.
It's like he knows that sometimes a story can reach us in a way that like a straight up philosophical treatise just can't.
Absolutely. Stories have a way of bypassing our intellectual defenses
Right.
and speaking directly to our hearts.
Like the one about the man who is so obsessed with finding treasure
Yes.
that he ends up in jail. Talk about missing the point.
Yeah.
He's so focused on external riches that he completely overlooks the true treasure that's within him all along.
Right. It's a classic tale about misplaced priorities.
Yeah.
The man's frantic search for external treasure symbolizes our own tendency to seek happiness in things that are ultimately fleeting and unsatisfying.
And it's such a powerful reminder that true wealth lies not in what we possess, but in who we are.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the inherent value of beauty of our own being, that spark of the divine that resides within each of us.
What about the story of the mouse and the frog who tie themselves together
Oh, yeah.
with a string because they're so afraid of losing their connection?
That's a fascinating one.
It is.
It's a bit more complex, but I think it's ultimately about the relationship between the soul and the body.
So the frog represents the soul and the mouse represents the body.
Exactly. The frog, being amphibious, can move freely between water and land,
Right.
symbolizing the soul's ability to transcend the limitations of the physical world.
Right.
Whereas the mouse, being earthbound, represents the body's need for security and attachment.
And they end up getting all tangled up,
They do.
which kind of speaks to how our attachment to material things, to our physical comforts, can restrict our spiritual growth.
Precisely. It's a cautionary tale about the importance of finding balance
Yeah.
between our earthly and spiritual aspirations.
I have to admit, the story left me feeling a little tangled up myself.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it makes sense, but it also feels a bit bleak. Like, are we doomed to be forever tethered to our earthly desires?
Hmm, that's a great question. And
Mm.
I think that's where another key theme in Rumi's work comes in.
Okay.
The idea that even negative experiences, things like pain and suffering, can be valuable on the spiritual path.
Wait, so you're saying that even our struggles, our heartbreaks, our disappointments
Yes,
can actually help us to grow spiritually?
exactly. Rumi doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of the human experience. In fact, he embraces them.
Okay.
He sees pain and suffering as opportunities for growth and transformation.
Okay, now this is where my mind starts to get a little blown. How can suffering be a good thing?
It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does.
But think about it this way. When we experience pain, when we're forced to confront our limitations, our fears, our deepest wounds, it can actually break us open.
Okay.
It can shatter our illusions,
Hmm.
force us to let go of our attachments,
Right.
and make us more receptive to a higher power.
There's that line in one of the poems that says, "The cure for pain is in the pain." It sounds almost paradoxical, but
But it holds a deep truth.
mm,
Rumi is suggesting that by facing our pain, not avoiding it,
right.
not trying to numb it, we can actually find healing and liberation.
So it's not about pretending that everything is fine or trying to force ourselves to be positive all the time.
No.
It's about acknowledging our pain and sitting with it and allowing it to transform us.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our pain is a messenger, a teacher,
Okay.
something that can help us to awaken to a deeper truth.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense. But it's definitely a tough lesson. It's not easy to embrace pain, especially when it feels so overwhelming.
It's not.
Ah,
And that's why Rumi emphasizes the importance of cultivating compassion,
okay.
both for ourselves and for others.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, that
Mhm.
we all experience pain and suffering, and that by offering ourselves and others kindness and understanding, we can help to ease the burden.
And there's that line that comes to mind. These pains that you feel are messengers, listen to them, turn them to sweetness. It's like he's saying that even our pain can be alchemized, transformed into something beautiful and nourishing.
Yes, it's about finding the silver lining even in the darkest of times,
Yeah.
and trusting that even in our pain, there's a divine purpose, a guiding force leading us towards wholeness. I think one of the things that I find so inspiring about Rumi's poetry is his unwavering faith in the power of love
Yeah.
to transform us.
Yeah, it really comes through.
It does, doesn't it? He doesn't just talk about love in these abstract terms.
Yeah.
He really embodies it in his writing.
He does. And it's not just the joy and the ecstasy,
Right.
but he also talks about the pain, the heartbreak.
Absolutely. He expresses the full spectrum of love
Yeah.
and suggests that even the thorns can be beautiful, that
Right.
even our pain can be a source of growth and transformation.
Yeah. And there's that line, "Love has taken away my practices and filled me with poetry. I tried to keep quietly repeating, 'No strength but yours,' but I couldn't. I had to clap and sing."
Oh, that's beautiful.
It just makes me want to dance.
It's infectious, isn't it?
Hmm.
It reminds us that the spiritual path is not meant to be, somber or serious.
Right.
It's about embracing the fullness of life,
Yeah.
the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow.
And even in the midst of darkness, there's always that possibility of transformation,
All
of finding
right.
beauty and meaning in our struggles.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
he's constantly pointing us towards the light, encouraging us to trust the journey, even when
Yeah.
we can't see where it's leading.
And speaking of the journey, I think one of the things that's so refreshing about Rumi's poetry is his honesty.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't shy away from like the messy realities.
He doesn't know the
He-
human experience.
He talks about desire, anger, jealousy, even despair.
Right.
He's not presenting some idealized version of spirituality.
Right.
He's acknowledging the full spectrum
Okay.
of human emotions and experiences.
Yeah. And there's a poem where he talks about his worst habit being that he gets so tired of winter
Oh,
that
yeah.
he becomes a torture to those around him.
I love that one.
I mean, who hasn't felt that way sometimes?
We've all been there.
Yeah.
It's so relatable. It makes his work so powerful because we can see ourselves in his words.
He's a real person.
He is a real person.
And I think that's what makes him so much more relatable.
Actually, we can all see ourselves
Yeah.
in his struggles, in his triumphs.
But it's not about beating ourselves up for our imperfections, right?
Right.
It's about recognizing them, accepting them,
Yes.
and continuing to strive towards growth. Exactly. And Rumi assures us that even in our darkest moments,
Yeah.
we're never truly alone. There's always the possibility of grace, of transformation, of returning to the light.
And he encourages us to reach out for help, to seek guidance from those who have already traversed the path.
He does. He writes, When water gets caught in habitual whirlpools, dig away out through the bottom to the ocean.
Oh, it's nice.
Right? It's a beautiful image of the power of spiritual practice
Yeah,
and the importance of having a mentor
right.
to guide us through challenging times.
It's like having a lifeline, someone to throw us a rope when we're drowning, and our
Yes.
own doubts and fears.
Absolutely. And speaking of guidance, I'm really intrigued by this figure of Kidra, who appears in several of the stories.
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
noticed him, Kidra?
He's so mysterious.
He's often described as this mysterious guide who appears to those who are seeking spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah, almost like a divine messenger sent to test us and guide us.
Right, and he often appears in unexpected ways,
Right.
challenging our assumptions,
Yeah.
pushing us to step outside of our comfort zones.
Like in that story where he sinks a boat,
Yes,
kills a young boy, damages a wall.
seemingly cruel acts
Right.
that turn out to have a hidden purpose.
Right?
It's a reminder that we don't always understand the workings of the divine plan,
We don't.
and that sometimes what appears to be a setback or tragedy is actually a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it's about trusting the process even when it doesn't make sense to our rational mind.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and having faith that we're being guided towards our highest good,
Right.
even when the path seems difficult or confusing.
You know, another theme that really jumps out at me in Rumi's work is his focus on the transformative power of surrender.
Yes.
This idea of letting go of our ego, our desires, our attachments,
Right.
and surrendering to the will of the divine.
It's a challenge for all of us, isn't it?
It is.
I wrestle with that.
Our egos are so good at clinging to control,
Right.
trying to make things happen according to our own limited understanding. But he reminds us that true freedom and happiness come from aligning ourselves with the divine will, from surrendering to the flow of life.
He does, and he offers these beautiful images to help us understand what that surrender might look like.
Yeah.
Like, be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself.
Ooh, what do you think he means by that?
I think he's inviting us to let go of all the things that we cling to, all the identities, the beliefs, the fears, the desires that keep us separate from our true nature.
Right. It's about recognizing that our true essence is pure, clear fluid, like melting snow.
Yes.
And by letting go of all that is rigid and fixed,
Yes.
we can return to that state of fluidity of oneness with the divine.
Beautifully said.
It's a beautiful image, but it's also a bit daunting.
It is.
Letting go of everything that we think we are. That's a pretty tall order.
It is. And it's not something that happens overnight.
No.
It's a process, a journey of letting go layer by layer
Right.
as we become more aware of the things that are holding us back.
And he reminds us that surrender is not about weakness or passivity.
Yeah.
It's about strength, courage, and a deep trust in the wisdom of the universe.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not in control,
Right.
that there's a higher power at work in our lives.
And that by surrendering to that power, we open ourselves up to possibilities that we could never have imagined on our own.
I love how he puts it, a secret turning in us makes the universe turn.
Oh, wow.
It's such a powerful reminder that our inner world is reflected in the outer world,
Right.
and that by transforming ourselves,
Yeah.
we contribute to the transformation of the world around us.
And speaking of transformation, one of the things that I find so inspiring about Rumi is his belief in the power of each individual
Yes.
to make a difference in the world.
Rumi believed that every human being carries within them the potential for greatness.
Yeah, he saw each person as a unique expression of the divine,
He did.
with a special gift to offer the world, and he encouraged people to embrace their individuality, to follow their hearts, and to live a life that was true to their authentic selves.
Exactly, he writes, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop.
Wow.
It's such a beautiful and empowering image, isn't it?
It really is, and it's a reminder that even though we may feel small and insignificant at times, we each have a unique and vital role to play
We do.
in the grand tapestry of life.
And that by living in alignment with our true nature, expressing our creativity and serving others, we contribute to the healing and transformation of the world.
So it's not about trying to be like someone else or conforming to societal expectations. It's about discovering our own unique gifts and sharing them with the world.
Absolutely. And Rumi's poetry encourages us to do just that,
Right.
to embrace our authenticity, to celebrate our differences, and to shine our light brightly in the world.
You know, as we're exploring Rumi's poetry, I'm noticing how often he uses the metaphor of music
Oh, yeah.
to describe the spiritual journey.
That's a beautiful observation. Music played a central role in Rumi's life and teachings.
It did.
He saw music as a pathway to the divine, a means of transcending the limitations of language and experiencing the unity and harmony of creation.
He writes, all day and night, music, A quiet, bright reed song. If it fades, we fade.
That's beautiful.
It's like this constant presence of the divine, the music of the spheres that sustains and nourishes us.
And he compares the soul to a reed flute,
Yeah.
hollowed out and transformed by the breath of the divine.
It's like we're all instruments waiting to be played by
Exactly.
the divine musician.
And he reminds us that just as a flute needs to be empty to make music,
Right.
so too do we need to empty ourselves of ego and desire
Yeah.
in order to allow the divine melody to flow through us.
I love that analogy. It's a reminder that the spiritual path is about letting go, about surrendering to something greater than ourselves,
Yeah.
and about allowing our lives to become a beautiful symphony of love, wisdom, and service.
Speaking of beauty, Rumi really emphasizes its importance, doesn't he?
He does, and he doesn't see beauty as something superficial or frivolous.
Right.
He sees it as a reflection of the divine, a pathway to the sacred.
He writes, I need a mouth as wide as the sky to say the nature of a true person, language as large as longing.
Wow.
What do you think he's trying to convey with those words?
I think he's trying to express the awe and wonder that he experiences in the presence of the divine,
The vastness.
that sense of being completely overwhelmed by beauty and love.
Yes, and also acknowledging the limitations of language
Right.
to capture the fullness of that experience.
Right.
But even though words may fall short,
Yeah.
Rumi's poetry still manages to evoke a sense of the transcendent.
It's like he's painting a picture with words, inviting us to glimpse the beauty of the divine through his eyes.
And his appreciation for beauty extends to all forms of creative expression,
Right.
from poetry and music,
Yeah.
dance and visual art.
He believed that art is a powerful means of connecting with the divine.
Yes.
And expressing our own unique understanding of the sacred.
Exactly. He writes, this poetry is an echo of what you say. A piece of land can't speak or know anything. Or if it can, only within limits. It's like he's saying that art can transcend the limitations of language
Yeah.
and communicate truths that can't be expressed in words.
And I think another thing that I find so compelling about Rumi's poetry is his use of imagery.
Yes.
He's a master of metaphor and simile,
Yeah.
creating these vivid and memorable images
Yeah.
that stay with you long after you finish reading.
His poetry is filled with such rich and evocative imagery.
Yeah, he compares love to a blacksmith hammering copper,
Yes.
the soul to a thirsty fish searching for the ocean,
Right.
the spiritual journey to a moth drawn to a flame.
It's such a beautiful and effective way to teach
It is.
because his imagery speaks to the imagination
Right.
and it helps us to connect with the truth of his teachings on a deeper level.
It's interesting how he uses the imagery of a tavern
Oh, yeah.
in some of his poems.
The tavern.
It seems like an unusual setting.
It
A lot
does.
of spiritual teachings.
It's a fascinating metaphor in his work.
What do you think he's trying to say with that?
Well, I think the tavern represents a place of both intoxication and spiritual awakening.
Okay.
It's a space where we can let go of our inhibitions
Right.
and experience the fullness of our being.
He writes, in the tavern are many wines. The wine of delight in color and form and taste. The wine of the intellect's agility. The fine port of stories, and the cabernet of soul singing. Being human means entering this place where entrancing varieties of desire are served.
It's a beautiful invitation to embrace the richness and complexity of the human experience,
Yeah.
to savor the pleasures of the senses while also seeking
Right.
a deeper connection with the divine.
It's like he's saying we don't have to deny our human desires, but rather to see them as part of the journey, as opportunities for growth and transformation.
Exactly. It's about finding that delicate balance
Right.
between indulgence and transcendence,
Right.
between embracing our human desires and aspiring towards spiritual liberation.
And he reminds us that the tavern is not a place to get lost in intoxication,
Right.
but rather a space to awaken to our true nature.
Yes, to use the experiences of the world, even the seemingly worldly experiences,
Right.
as opportunities to learn to grow
Yeah.
and to connect with the divine.
You know, I'm really struck by how Rumi's poetry challenges us to question our assumptions
He does.
about life, death, and the nature of reality.
He doesn't offer easy answers or neat solutions.
Right.
Instead, he invites us to sit with the unknown,
Yeah.
to embrace the paradox,
Yeah.
and to trust the unfolding of our own unique journey.
He writes, this place is a dream. Only a sleeper considers it real. Then death comes like dawn, and you wake up laughing at what you thought was your grief.
Wow.
It's powerful, right?
It's a powerful reminder that our perception of reality
Yeah.
is often limited
Right.
and that there's a deeper truth waiting to be discovered beyond the confines of our ordinary awareness.
He's suggesting that death is not an end, but rather a transition to a higher state of consciousness.
Right.
And that by embracing the impermanence of life,
Yes.
we can liberate ourselves from fear
Right.
and live more fully in the present moment.
It's a profound shift in perspective, isn't it?
It is.
To see death not as something to be feared,
Right.
but as a doorway to a new beginning.
It's definitely a challenge to wrap our minds around, but I think it's a really important message, especially in a culture that's so obsessed
Yes.
with youth and longevity.
Absolutely. Rumi reminds us that true life is not about clinging to the physical form, but about embracing the eternal essence of our being.
And you know, one of the things that I find so comforting about Rumi's poetry is his assurance that we're never truly alone.
Yes.
He reminds us that we're always connected to the divine, even when we feel lost or disconnected.
That's a beautiful message of hope and comfort.
He writes, "Lo, I am with you," always means when you look for God, God is in the look of your eyes, in the thought of looking nearer to you than yourself or things that have happened to you. There's no need to go outside.
It's a powerful reminder that the divine is not some distant deity,
Right.
but rather a presence that resides within us,
Right.
in every breath, every heartbeat,
Yeah.
every moment of our lives.
It's about cultivating awareness, paying attention to the subtle whispers of our hearts,
Yes.
and recognizing the divine spark that exists within us all.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we're not separate from the divine,
Right.
but rather an integral part
Yeah.
of its infinite and ever-unfolding expression.
You know, one of the things that I find so fascinating about Rumi's poetry is his ability to capture the essence of the mystical experience, those moments of transcendence and unity that defy language and description.
That's a hallmark of his genius.
Yeah.
Rumi was a master expressing the ineffable,
Right.
using poetry to create a bridge between the world of form and the realm of the formless.
He writes, "Love's secret is always lifting its head out from under the covers. Here I am."
It's a beautiful image of the ever-present nature of divine love,
Right.
the way it permeates our lives even when we're unaware of it.
He's suggesting that the mystical experience is not something that we have to seek out
Right.
in some far-off land or through some elaborate ritual. It's here now within us, waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. It's about cultivating awareness,
Right.
paying attention to the subtle whispers of our hearts, and recognizing the divine spark
Right.
that exists within us all.
And you know, Rumi's poetry often evokes this sense of longing,
It does.
this yearning for something more,
Yes.
a desire to connect with something greater than ourselves.
He speaks to that deep human need for belonging,
Yeah.
that yearning for union with the divine.
He writes, "The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere, they're in each other all along."
It's like a love song to the divine.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that we're not separate from the divine,
Right.
but rather an integral part of its infinite and ever-unfolding expression.
And that the journey of spiritual awakening is about recognizing and embodying that unity, that interconnectedness
Yes.
that exists between us all.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the illusion of separation and experiencing the fullness of our being.
Right.
The divine spark that resides within each and every one of us.
You know, as we're diving deeper into Rumi's world, I'm noticing how often he uses humor
Yes.
to convey profound spiritual truths.
That's a key characteristic of his teaching style.
It is.
Rumi understood that humor can disarm our defenses,
Right.
making us more receptive to his message.
He's not afraid to be playful, to use wit and wordplay to make us laugh,
Wow.
even as he's inviting us to confront our deepest fears and longings.
And his humor is often infused with wisdom,
Yeah.
offering subtle insights
Okay.
and gentle nudges toward spiritual awakening.
Like the story about the man who goes to a sheik seeking spiritual guidance.
Oh, yeah.
And the sheik's wife keeps interrupting their conversation.
I love that story.
Much to the man's annoyance.
It's so relatable, isn't it?
Right, we've all been there.
Who haven't been in a situation where they're trying to have a serious conversation.
Right.
And someone keeps interrupting.
But there's a deeper meaning at play here, right?
There is.
The man is so focused on the external form. It's like
Yes.
the proper way to seek guidance.
Right.
And the sheikh is trying to teach him a lesson about the importance of embracing the messiness of life.
Yes.
And that spiritual growth doesn't always happen in these neat and tidy packages.
Exactly. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected sources.
And another thing that strikes me about Rumi's poetry is his emphasis on the importance of living authentically.
Yes.
He encourages us to be true to ourselves, to express our unique gifts and talents, and to live a life that's aligned with our values.
That's a core principle of his teachings.
Yes.
Rumi believed that each person is a unique expression of the divine, with
Yeah,
a special gift to offer the world.
right?
And he encouraged people to embrace their individuality, to follow their hearts, and to live a life that was true to their authentic selves.
He writes, unfold your own myth.
It's a powerful invitation
It
to
is.
break free from societal expectations,
Right.
to reject conformity,
Yeah.
and to create a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
He's suggesting that we each have a unique story to tell, a unique contribution to make to the world,
We do.
and that by embracing our authenticity,
Yes.
we tap into our full potential and live a life that's both joyful and purposeful.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our differences are our strengths,
Yes.
and that by embracing our uniqueness,
Yeah.
we enrich the tapestry of life.
You know, as we're diving deeper into Rumi's world, I'm struck by the way he weaves together the personal and the universal, the mundane and the mystical.
That's one of the hallmarks of his genius.
It is.
He connects with us on a human level, sharing his own struggles and insights, while also pointing towards truths that transcend time and space.
There's a poem where he writes, someone digging in the ground. Someone digging in the ground stumbles on a treasure. Imagine yourself walking the road effortlessly to find a jeweled box buried beside the road. The owner has died, and no one else knows about it.
It's a beautiful metaphor for the spiritual journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way that grace and unexpected blessings can appear
Yeah.
when we least expect them.
It's like we're all on a treasure hunt, but we don't need a map or a compass.
Right.
We just need to be open to the possibility of finding something precious along the way.
Exactly. And Rumi reminds us that the treasure is not something that we have to strive for or earn.
Right.
It's already there within us, waiting to be discovered.
It's like we're already rich, but we've forgotten about our inheritance.
Yes, and the spiritual journey is about remembering who we are,
Right.
about reclaiming our birthright of joy, love, and freedom.
Yeah. It's a beautiful image of like letting go of judgment and blame and connecting with each other on a deeper level in a place of pure love and acceptance.
And it's a reminder that even in the midst of darkness, there's always light, there's always hope, there's always a possibility of healing and transformation.
Rumi's poetry really does offer a path towards wholeness.
It does.
It's not about escaping from the world or denying our humanity.
Right.
It's about embracing the fullness of life, the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow.
Absolutely. It's about finding that delicate balance between our human experience and our spiritual aspirations.
And recognizing that even in our imperfections and our struggles, we are expressions of divine love.
Yes, we're all works in progress, right?
Yeah.
Constantly evolving, constantly becoming. And Rumi's poetry reminds us to be gentle with ourselves, to celebrate our progress, and to trust the journey.
As we delve deeper into Rumi's world, I'm struck by the way he weaves together poetry, philosophy, and storytelling to create such a rich tapestry of spiritual wisdom.
It's a masterful blend of art and insight. His poetry transcends intellectual understanding.
Yeah.
It touches us on a soul level.
There's this line that keeps resonating with me. This that is tormented is not me. Look closer. Behind the cloth, tears of joy are my essence.
Ooh, I love that one.
What do you make of that?
I think it's a profound reminder that our true nature is not defined by our struggles or our pain.
Right. He's suggesting that beneath the surface of our human experience, there's a wellspring of joy and peace and love that's always available to us.
It's about cultivating awareness, connecting with our inner being, and recognizing the divine spark that resides within us all.
You know, one of the things that I find so fascinating about Rumi's poetry is his use of paradox.
Oh, yeah,
He often presents seemingly contradictory ideas,
he does.
side by side, inviting us to expand our thinking and embrace a more nuanced perspective.
That's a key element of his mystical teaching.
Yeah.
He uses paradox to point towards truths that transcend logic and reason.
He writes, for example, this poetry, I never know what I'm going to say, I don't plan it. When I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all.
It's a beautiful expression of the creative process.
Yeah.
The way that inspiration flows through us when we surrender to the unknown.
Right. It's like he's saying that true creativity doesn't come from the ego's attempts to control and manipulate,
No,
but from a deeper source, a wellspring of wisdom and inspiration that's beyond our conscious understanding.
exactly. It's about cultivating a state of receptivity, of openness, of allowing ourselves to be surprised and delighted by the unexpected gifts that life has to offer.
And another thing that strikes me about Rumi's writing is his sense of humor.
Yes.
Even when he's dealing with profound spiritual concepts,
He is.
he often injects this playful wit that makes his work both engaging and accessible.
It's a reminder that the spiritual path is not meant to be serious or somber.
Right.
It's about embracing the joy and the lightness of being.
And he uses humor to disarm our defenses to make us more receptive to his teachings.
Absolutely. Like he's saying, don't take yourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Relax, open your hearts, and allow yourselves to be surprised and delighted by the wonders of existence.
It's a great reminder for all of us
It is.
to lighten up and to find the joy in the journey.
Life is too short to be anything but joyful.
You know, one of the things that I find so inspiring about Rumi's poetry is his ability to find beauty and meaning in the most unexpected places.
That's a hallmark of his mystical vision.
Yeah, he writes, "If you are not a lover, how can you know what lovers talk about? If you've never been pierced by a thorn, how can you know the nature of a rose?"
It's a beautiful reminder that true understanding comes not from intellectual knowledge, but from direct experience.
He's inviting us to open our hearts to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, both the joy and the sorrows, and to find the sacred in the ordinary.
Yes, to be fully present in the world,
Yeah.
to engage with all of our senses, and to allow ourselves to be transformed by the beauty that surrounds us.
Another thing that strikes me about Rumi's writing is his emphasis on the importance of living authentically.
That's a core principle of his teachings.
It is.
Rumi believed that each person is a unique expression of the divine with a special gift to offer the world.
Yeah, and he encouraged people to embrace their individuality, to follow their hearts, and to live a life that was true to their authentic selves.
He writes, "There's a morning inside you waiting to burst open into light."
It's a beautiful image of the potential that lies within each of us, waiting to be awakened and expressed.
And a reminder that we are all capable of great things if we just dare to be ourselves.
Well, I think we've only just begun to explore the depths of Rumi's wisdom.
We have, but what a journey it's been. What are you taking away from this deep dive?
You know, there's so many things that have resonated with me, but one thing that really stands out is his emphasis on the transformative power of love.
Yes, love is the thread that runs through all of his work. Isn't it? It's the source of all creation, the force that binds us together, and the path that leads us back to our true home.
And I love how he presents love as something that's both wild and ecstatic, but also tender and compassionate.
He doesn't shy away from the complexities of love.
No.
He acknowledges the pain, the heartbreak, the challenges.
But he also reminds us that love is always worth the risk.
It is.
Because it's through love that we awaken to our true nature, to the divine spark that resides within us all.
Exactly. And it's through love that we connect with each other, with the world around us, and with the source of all creation.
So for anyone listening who's new to Rumi's work, I encourage you to explore it further. You might be surprised by how much his words resonate with you, even centuries after they were written.
And for those of you who are already familiar with Rumi, I invite you to revisit his work with fresh eyes. There's always something new to discover.
Because Rumi's poetry is like a bottomless, well, the more you draw from it, the more it gives.
And the more it transforms you.
Rumi reminds us that the journey of spiritual awakening is not about seeking something outside of ourselves.
It's about remembering who we already are.
It's about returning to that place of love, joy, and freedom that resides within us all.
And it's a journey that's worth taking.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Rumi's poetry.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've been inspired to embark on your own journey of self-discovery and transformation.
And remember, gamble everything for love.
If you're a true human being,